I was driving back from a grueling court session in the city when I saw the wreckage from afar. My truck slowed, tires grinding gravel, as I stared in disbelief. The old wooden bridge 3 generations strong on my family's land was gone. Splintered planks littered the riverbanks, some sinking into the shallow current, others drifting downstream. I leapt out, boots slipping in the dirt. That bridge wasn't just a crossing. It was a legacy, built by my grandfather, repaired by my father, restored by me. It was a federally protected historic structure, untouchable by law. Now it was rubble. A garish orange sign flapped nearby, branded with the HOA's logo, Crestview Pines Association. Below, in bold, unauthorized structure removed for community safety. CPA Compliance Division. My hands trembled as I snapped photos from every angle, documenting the crime. They hadn't just destroyed a bridge, they'd crossed a federal judge. But I didn't flash my title yet. I had a plan, one that'd make them regret ever touching my land. As I stood there, the river gurgling behind me, a familiar voice called out, "Hey, Judge, you okay?" It was Sam, my ranch hand and old friend, gaping at the mess. "Who did this?" he asked. "Looks like a bomb went off." "The HOA," I said, voice like ice. Sam's eyes widened. "Now this." They thought I was just a rancher, calluses and cattle, not someone who wore a black robe and had the justice system on speed dial. I wasn't going to play that card not until it stung. Days earlier, I'd noticed odd activity, strangers in polos and khakis, clipboards in hand, pacing my property line. I'd thought they were surveyors, maybe developers, and let it slide. Now I knew better. Sam helped me gather scattered boards in silence, the loss heavy between us. Without the bridge, half my land was cut off. That evening, I marched into the Crestview Pines HOA office, a glossy building too fancy for our rural corner glass doors, fake stone, a perpetually broken fountain. The receptionist barely looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm here about the bridge on my ranch," I said. She blinked. "And you are?" "Judge Harlan," I replied. No reaction. She tapped her screen. "You're not an HOA member, sir." "I know. My land's not in your subdivision." "That bridge wasn't yours." Confusion flickered across her face, but before she could respond, a stocky man emerged. "Tom Kessler, HOA Vice President," name tag gleaming. "Problem, sir?" Tom asked, stepping forward. I kept my cool. "I'd like to know why your group demolished a historic structure on federally protected private land." He chuckled. "That old thing? It was a hazard. Homeowners complained it looked unsafe. Our team took action." "Did you check with the county? The state? The Federal Preservation Office?" I asked. He shrugged. "Didn't see the need. Thought we were helping." "You weren't," I said. "You just broke federal law." He scoffed. "Look, judge or not, if you're in our community, I'm not." I cut in. "My ranch is outside your jurisdiction. Always has been." The receptionist's eyes widened. She was catching on. Tom, too arrogant to notice, smirked. "Maybe it's time your land joined us." I stared. So that was it, not just the bridge, but power, control, my land. They wanted to swallow my property to inflate their fees and ego. He thought this was a game. I had a playbook he'd never read. That night, I called a contact at the Department of the Interior. The bridge had been on the historic registry for decades, records, inspections, even a 1990s newspaper clipping about its heritage. They'd raised a protected landmark without notice, on land they didn't own. That was a federal crime. The gears were turning, but I kept my hand hidden. The next day, I parked at the bridge site and strung up caution tape, planting signs. "Crime scene, federal property." Sam laughed under his breath. "You're not playing, are you?" "Dead serious," I said. "We set up trail cams and motion detectors, not for vandals, but for evidence." I knew Tom wasn't done. 2 nights later, at midnight, my phone pinged. A trail cam had tripped. I opened the app and watched 3 men in dark clothes creep across the creek bed, flashlights dim. They studied my signs. One kicked a post over, another snapped photos, mapping my land to claim it was public or abandoned. I called Sam. "We've got trespassers." We rode out in my ATV, lights off, gliding through the pines. The air was crisp, leaves crunching under tires. We spotted them, 2 scribbling notes, one planting flags. I flicked on the headlights. They froze. One dropped his clipboard and bolted. The others played lost. I said nothing, just took pictures, then spoke. You're trespassing on federally protected land." Their faces paled. They stammered excuses and ran. Sam chuckled. Wrong ranch. Next morning, I compiled the photos, timestamps, and the HOA's bridge demolition memo into a file for my federal contacts. But as I sealed the envelope, a boom shook the ranch. Smoke rose from the back. Sam burst in, pale. "They blew up your shed." I grabbed my boots and ran. The shed tools, wire, feed was an inferno, chemical stench thick in the air. Scorch marks scarred the dirt, a shattered gas can yards away. This wasn't an accident, it was arson. They'd poured fuel on their own grave. I stayed up, scouring footage. There it was. One of the trespassers, caught sneaking to the shed at dusk. Minutes later, a flash-through explosion. I sent it to my lawyer and a friend at the U.S. Marshals Service. This wasn't just HOA nonsense anymore. It was a criminal case. The next day, I filed with the sheriff. Deputy Jake, young and skeptical, blinked when I showed my credentials. "You're a federal judge?" I nodded. That shed was on the same historic parcel as the bridge they destroyed. By noon, state police and a bomb squad swarmed my ranch, confirming arson. The HOA stayed silent, no calls, no letters. The calm before the storm. Days later, the shed's ashes still fresh. I doubled my cameras. Sam was in town when a knock came. A man in a gray suit stood there, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Harlan." "Judge Harlan," I corrected. He smiled, unfazed. "I'm with Crestview Pines. Here to propose zoning changes." I crossed my arms. "You blew up my shed, raised a protected bridge, trespassed, and now you want my land in your HOA?" His eyes twitched. "We weren't involved in Save It," I snapped. "Tell your boss one more step on my land, and I'll haul your board to federal court." His smile faded. He left. That afternoon, Tom Kessler emailed a legal-worded dodge, offering a community meeting to resolve disputes. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to the U.S. Attorney's office with my file. Then, a new move. My internet cut out one night. I checked my phone's hotspot, it worked fine. Outside, I saw workers in yellow vests by my telephone pole, lowering a booster box into a truck. "What are you doing?" I called. The lead blinked. "We're from PineNet, HOA's provider, removing equipment." "That's my providers, not PineNet's," I said, showing my parcel ID. "This isn't HOA land." He paled. "Who authorized this?" I asked. He stammered. "The association said it was approved." I filmed. "You just admitted to stealing my property on an illegal order." They fled, but they'd exposed the HOA's digital grabland, water, now communications. Next morning, I filed another complaint, attaching the video, the zoning proposal, the arson footage, the trespasser photos. Then Sam brought a letter from town, red-stamped. Notice of property foreclosure intent. The HOA claimed $28,000 in fake dues, fines, and penalties, threatening to seize my ranch if unpaid in 30 days. My family's home, my father's labor, my grandfather's pride targeted by fraud. That night, wind howling where the bridge once stood, I sat on the porch, stars above, and whispered, "You want war? Fine." I opened my filing cabinet, pulled a sealed federal injunction order, and called Marshall Owen. "Got a docket for property disputes?" "Yeah, why?" he asked. I smiled. "I've got the case of the decade. By sunrise, my file bridge demolition, arson, trespassing, digital theft, fake foreclosure was on the federal docket, expedited for injunction." I didn't go public, letting the HOA think they were winning. 3 days later, Sarah Brooks, a DOJ investigator, called. "I'm leading your case. Can we inspect your site this week?" "I'm here," I said. "Judge," she added, "we've launched a multi-agency task force on HOA overreach. Yours might be our first trial." That day, Sam and I walked the land. It felt tense, like it was waiting. "What'll they do when they learn who you are?" Sam asked, eyeing a new trail cam. "Too late for them," I said. A white sedan idled down the road, same one we'd seen before. We drove toward it. It sped off, dust trailing. I reported the plate. The sheriff called back, registered to PineNet, the HOA's partner. They weren't just pushing, they were watching. An HOA board member, older, weathered, visited next, alone in a beat-up truck. "I tried to stop this," he said at the gate. "Too late," I replied. "I told Tom that bridge would wake a giant." I stayed silent. "Didn't know who you were," he added. That make it better? No, he said, just dumber. He handed me an envelopia $5,000 check, a settlement offer on HOA letterhead. I laughed. For a federal landmark, 3 generations, a burned shed, and a fake lien? He looked ashamed. You were right, he said, and left. Next morning, federal SUVs rolled in. Sarah Brooks led the team, badge out. For 6 hours, we toured the wreckage bridge, shed, tampered telecom poles. Sarah pointed at a drilled pole base. They didn't just unplug the sabotaged infrastructure. They're done. I nodded, knowing what was next. Then, the HOA's biggest blunder. That evening, I noticed my cattle missing. The north pasture gate was wide open, chain cut, leading to the highway. Sam and I drove for hours, rounding up most of the herd near the woods, shaken but alive. Someone had freed them, lives at risk, not just property. I filed reports, alerted Sarah, and set a federal sabotage notice. They wouldn't stop until stopped. That night, I stood on the ranch, horizon dark, and decided, no more defense. Time to fight in court, on camera, all in. 2 weeks later, the courtroom buzzed lawyers, reporters, homeowners, ranchers. I sat at the plaintiff's table, no robe, just a suit, watching Tom Kessler strut in with 3 attorneys, smirking like he'd already won. He didn't know the storm he'd entered. Judge Laura Hayes, a colleague, presided, nodding at me before starting. Case 441, Harlan v. Crestview Pines Association. My lawyer, Nathan Cole, calm and sharp, opened. The HOA demolished a protected bridge, committed crimes, and targeted a federal judge, thinking he couldn't fight back. They were wrong. He presented everything: trespasser footage, arson video, fake foreclosure, tampered telecoms, forged maps. Tom's lawyer claimed miscommunication and clerical errors. Laura raised an eyebrow. Errors that caused arson and fraud. The defense floundered. Laura ruled. This court grants an immediate injunction against Crestview Pines. Seesaw actions on Harlan's land: financial, digital, physical, or face federal penalties. Tom's smirk cracked. Reporters swarmed. I walked out quietly. The story broke. Judge sues HOA for arson, fraud, historic demolition. HOA victims nationwide shared tales: fines for flags, foreclosures over shrubs. My case became their banner. But the HOA didn't stop. One night, Sam and I were fixing a gate when a black SUV, no plates, crept up. The driver leaned out, mid-40s, polished but cold. You're loud for a quiet guy, he said. Who are you? I asked. A friend of the association. Let's talk off record. Sam gripped a wrench. Threatening a judge? The man chuckled. Just saying, mess is bad for everyone. I stepped closer. I spot liars for a living. You're scared, and you should be. He drove off, smile gone. I reported it to Sarah. We're not just fighting board members, she said. They've got contractors, maybe developers. I held a press conference by the shed's ashes, calm. This isn't about my land. It's about unchecked power corrupting systems meant to serve. They broke laws, erased history, thinking no one could stop them. Someone did. HOA leaders resigned: treasurer, secretary, board members silent, gone. Tom stayed, tied to a developer eyeing my land for subdivisions. It explained the bridge, the lien, the sabotage, all to devalue and seize. His subpoena loomed. I didn't celebrate. The bridge was still gone. I called builders from a courthouse restoration. We're rebuilding, I said, exactly as it was. Halfway through, we found a rusted box under the old bridge site: 1947 blueprints, signed by my grandfather, with a note, to my sons and grandsons. May this bridge bind our family, no matter the storms. I teared up, not for loss, but legacy. Construction grew. Ranchers brought tools, carpenters volunteered, students joined. It wasn't just a bridge, it was defiance. We carved the note into a plaque. May this bridge bind our family, no matter the storms. The DOJ's probe widened, sparked by my case. Stories poured in: Arizona, Texas, Florida HOA abuse, land grabs. Tom made a final play. One night, by the near-finished bridge, bulldozers idled, Tom smirking. No permit, he said. It's a hazard. I snatched his folder: forged surveys, fake signatures. This is forgery, I said. He shrugged. The county'll decide. Sam stepped up, fists tight. Leave, or someone's hurt. Tom taunted. You'll fold. I stared. I'm setting the table. Federal SUVs roared up. Marshal Owen flashed his badge. Tom Kessler, you're under arrest trespassing, interfering with a federal case. Tom screamed as they cuffed him, machines towed away. Sarah called next. We traced the HOA's Funsin offshore developer, Miami-based, specializing in rural takeovers. They used Tom to force you out, flip your land for profit. Accounts were frozen, but Sarah warned, they're slippery. Stay sharp. The next attack wasn't fire or lean sit, was drones, buzzing my ranch, one nearly hitting Sam's truck. I built net launchers, snagging 7, each tied to the developer's shells. The bridge finished on a crisp Sunday. Neighbors, friends, reporters gathered. I drove a gold nail into the final beam, raised a flag, and cheers rang out. For a moment, it felt whole. A black car pulled up. A man in a blazer handed me a letter and offer to buy the ranch for millions. Read it carefully, he said, and left. I tossed it into the creek. Some things: bridges, land, legacy aren't for sale. The DOJ's RICO probe hit. Racketeering, fraud, conspiracy. News screamed. Judge's bridge sparks, HOA sting. Congress proposed the Homeowner Fairness Act, HOA oversight. Criminal penalties, all from my fight. Victims thanked me, sharing their losses, homes, gardens, pride. At sunset, Sam and I stood by the bridge, tea in hand, cattle grazing. Ever think of selling? He teased. I grinned. They offered enough for 10 ranches. I looked at the bridge, glowing amber. Wouldn't trade this for all the gold in Texas. We laughed, peace settling in. Judge Hayes called later. They pleaded guilty, board, developers, all of them. You won. I stared at the stars, the bridge sturdy below. Peace didn't come from shouting or scheming, it came from standing firm, reminding the powerful, you don't mess with a man's legacy. And you don't tear down his bridge.